So I just want to be clear, I did not pick this topic. This topic was picked for me. The Latin bona fides, in Kentucky we call it bona fides, is that I skied 750 miles across Antarctica to the South Pole. I rode a boat alone across the Atlantic Ocean. I climbed mountains. I ice climb. I do all sorts of strange things, and I'm still alive. Okay. So, you know, they give me directions on how to do this. They say start with a story that captures people's attention. Okay. I once started a commencement address. God, 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 sex, 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 politics, politics, politics. I wanted to cover all the things you're not allowed to talk about. So when I rode across the Atlantic Ocean, it took me 2 tries. My first try, I'm giving you the very abridged version. You can get the longer version on the internet. Lots of other talks, blah, blah, blah. I rode 3,000 miles, and then I got hit by a hurricane. The hurricane was named Danielle. The morning Hurricane Danielle arrived, the boat capsized 5 or 6 times. It was explained to a young person, told me she didn't know what capsize meant, so flip the boat upside down so people know it means flipping upside down. So the boat flipped upside down 5 or 6 times. When I'm talking to accountants, I really freak them out because they're like, was it 5 or was it 6? Like, I mean, they're really upset by that. If you're inside this little cabin in the back, bouncing around like a ping pong ball, you just see the ceiling going by. You don't get to count how many times it went by. So after the 5th or 6th episode, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I got out of my watertight hatch, crawled across the deck, tied into my safety tether to get the emergency position indicating radio beacon, which is right here, better known as an EPIRB. You turn it on, it says, help! You don't turn it on, it doesn't say anything. And the time it took me to get out there, waves were washing over the boat. It was doing this really annoying submarine thing. When the boat goes so far under the surface of the water that your ears pop, it is a bad sign. And I realized I could not ask another human being to come out into that storm. So I took the distress beacon back into the cabin, went through 5 or 6 more capsizes that day with the distress beacon tied to my life vest, not setting it off with my other hand. 2 of my capsizes were end-over-end pitch poles. One capsize dislocated my shoulder, the next capsize put it back into place. This is my definition of a bad day. And if you combine this with the fact that I skied 750 miles across the highest, driest, coldest continent on the face of the planet, average temperature minus 25, you will understand why, as the president of Spalding University in Louisville, Kentucky, I do not decide whether our students get a snow day. I make our provost decide whether the students get a snow day. And so I was at commencement just June 3rd this month, and Lonnie Ali was in the audience, and I wanted to talk about her and Muhammad, and I worked for Lonnie and Muhammad and how important they were to my life. But I worked for them right after my unsuccessful row, and I wanted her to understand just how bad that storm had been. But I had faculty behind me and trustees behind me, and when I said, I'm going to tell a rowboat story, I could just imagine the eyes rolling. Oh, God, we're going to hear about rowboats again. And I was like, it's okay. I'm going to tell a story you have not heard before, and I'm going to repeat it for you, because it's not on the internet yet. So the storm was so bad and went on for so long that at the height of the storm, I went out onto the deck and tried to kill myself. At commencement, I felt compelled to say I was not successful. But, you know, when you're in a rowboat in a storm that goes on for like a day and a half, nature begins to call. And the plumbing system aboard the American Pearl was bucket and chuck it, and the bucket was out on the deck. And I kind of didn't want to kick the bucket while using the bucket. If you're young and you don't understand that, kicking the bucket is dying. And so I was in the cabin, and I didn't want to leave the cabin. And, you know, I was ignoring nature's call, and then, you know, you just have to pay attention after a while. So I found a Ziplock bag. And the greatest athletic feat of my life was catching everything that needed doing in that Ziplock bag. And I zipped it up. I was so proud of myself. Woo! And I went to throw that Ziplock bag outside. It was in my left hand. And I'm holding the hatch with my right hand, and I look out, and I think, that is the biggest wave I have ever seen in my entire life. The wave comes down on top of the boat capsizes, and that Ziplock bag leaves my hand and flies unerringly to my face and breaks. What did I do? I laughed, right? A few minutes later, I wanted to die. I laughed, and in that laughter, rediscovered the will to live, which is kind of an important thing. So you only involve scatological humor in an audience if you're trying to make a point with it. My definition of a survival situation is when the universe hits you in the face with a Ziploc bag. Now, obviously, there are backcountry survival situations where you're trying to survive Mother Nature, and then there are front country survival situations where you're trying to survive human nature. I'm an expert on the former and pathetic on the latter. So don't expect any wisdom from me, but I do think the things that help you to survive in the backcountry absolutely can help you to survive in the front country. So in the backcountry, I mean, even today, like, if I don't have food, water, and a knife nearby always, I get a little twitchy. Like, as a matter of fact, so you're creative, I'm bragging. I made this, right? And what's cool about this is I made a matching case for my knife. Now, I made it to fit on the strap of this briefcase, but the corporate counsel at Spalding University will not let me walk around with a knife showing, right? Concealed carry, she says, Tori, concealed carry. But it's not a knife, it's a Leatherman, which is just a toolbox. My toolbox is here. And so we had a great debate at leadership team at Spalding, whether when it says no weapons allowed in the buildings, whether my knife was a weapon. And I'm like, seriously, in my office, you will find ice axes. You know, and I had the HR director time me. I was like, okay, somebody bad is coming in the office. Wait, let me get my knife. Wait. And it took 35 seconds for me to get the knife out, and it's like 3 inches long. Gotcha. Like, I would throw an ice axe. I would throw books. I mean, you wouldn't have a chance of getting to me before I got that knife out. So that was not in my list of things to talk about. Just not there at all. So, the point is, humor, if you study resilience, if you study deep survival, if you study people who live through situations they should not live through, humor is a really sort of a thread that runs through all of it. And think about it. People who don't have a sense of humor, they're not very smart. People who have no sense of humor are tedious. Do not marry or become entangled with such people. Do not even bother to have lunch with such people. So, in the front country, you know, backcountry, I have all these sort of mottos of how to live in the backcountry. But in the front country, there's just one quote that sticks with me. Nothing is worth the wear of winning but laughter and the love of friends. And it comes from Hilaire Belloc. So, when I was talking to Lonnie about her husband, Muhammad, and I admitted that when I worked for Muhammad and Lonnie Ali, I'm an intellectual. I didn't know anything about love that I hadn't read in a book. Like Socrates wrote, by all means marry. If you get a good wife, you'll be happy. If you get a bad one, you'll be a philosopher. And then I quoted Plato. Plato wrote that love is a serious mental disease, end quote, because he was a philosopher, right? So I'm talking to Lonnie and saying, you know, I watched you and Muhammad, and the love that you exhibited for each other really filled up the world. And so that encouraged me to use a romantic pickup line on a man to whom I am now married. Here was my romantic pickup line. Look, I'm tired of dating testosterone and gorilla dust. I know you can carry on a conversation. Would you go with me to this thing? And he went, and we've been together ever since. So I was lucky. But nothing is worth the wear of winning but laughter and the love of friends. So when I think about sort of the qualifications I have in friends and sort of the tie between the backcountry experience and the front country experience, you know, Mother Nature versus human nature, I think about the things I learned from the National Outdoor Leadership School. Now, NOLS has sort of 7 tenets of outdoor leadership. The first tenet is called expedition behavior. Now, in the front country, we call that compassion, collegiality, being a nice person, being a creative, being, cool. It's about positivity. It's about being able to reconcile diversity. And so when I think about that, so Shaggy Dog Tour. I wasn't going here either. Okay, so I do everything backwards, right? Rowers, we go that way. And so I do everything backwards. I went to divinity school first, and then I went to law school. Most people do it the other way around to atone for their sins. When I finished law school, actually when I finished divinity school, I ran a shelter for homeless women at 32nd and Broadway, which was with the Volunteers of America. And the first day I worked in the shelter, this woman came into the office, and she was big. She was bigger than me, and I'm big. And she was roaring drunk. And by the rules of the organization, I was supposed to kick her out, but I was feeling this funny feeling. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I remembered a few years earlier, I had traveled in Kenya with the National Outdoor Leadership School, and I traveled across the Ngurman Escarpment off the Serengeti Plain with 2 Maasai, one named Moses, the other named Daniel. Yes, the Christian missionaries had been in that part of Kenya. Moses was a liberated Maasai. He knew I was a woman. He was cool with that. Daniel was sure I was a man because there's no way in heck he was going to cross Africa with any female. And so I had to let Daniel continue to think that I was a man. And he figured it out later, but it was a little awkward. But so we're hiking through this area, and Daniel goes, Marifu. They call me Marifu. It means tall. Marifu, there's been a leopard in this area. Leopard. Leopards are mbayasana, very bad. So anything that kills cattle messes up the economy for the Maasai. So leopards are bad. So he comes into the boma at about 3 o'clock in the morning going, Marifu, let us go and kill this leopard. Let us kill it now. I'm going, Daniel, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I do not want to go leopard hunting. He starts to tease me as if to say, what are you, a woman? So I take my rungu, which you can see is a stick with a knob on the end of it. Daniel takes his spear. We go out in the yard. We catch a goat. We go out in the woods. We tie the goat to the tree. The goat's going, mah, mah. I'm going, shut up. I have never prayed so hard in my entire life. I was praying, dear God, if this Maasai fails to kill this leopard with his spear, you got a white woman with a stick. Smith College. I went to Smith. Smith College is an excellent school. It did not teach me how to kill a leopard with a stick. Fortunately for me, the leopard didn't show up, and I don't have to explain to you of how I was involved in killing a member of an endangered species, because that would not go over well with creatives. You would say bad things about me on the internet. And but fast forward to that homeless shelter. What I was feeling was fear. And I don't know what it's like to be a battered woman. Some man hits me, I'm going to hit him back, and I'm going to hurt him, right? I don't know what it's like to be battered. She didn't know what it was like to hunt a leopard with a stick, but we both understood fear, which reminded me of a Greek poet named Terence. Terence was born a slave and wrote such amazing poetry that his masters freed him. And so a woman lived in the shelter. After 3 weeks of living in a safe, secure, sanitary environment, she was writing amazing poetry. Not amazing poetry for a woman or a homeless woman, but amazing poetry. It was fantastic. So that was longer than I meant to talk, but I wanted to talk about sort of expedition behavior as being helping to close the rift between competition and compassion. Like, I'm competitive, right? I like to win, and I usually do. But I'm not at my best when I'm operating in a spirit of competition. Like, if I'm in a competitive relationship with you, it doesn't help me to figure out how we're the same. It only helps me to figure out how we're different so I can exploit those differences and grind you into dust, right? If I'm in a compassionate relationship with you, it doesn't help me to figure out how we're different. It only helps me to figure out how to reconcile our differences, to find our sameness, so I can support you in that sameness and lift you up. So compassion is what I think about when I think about expedition behavior. Now, I got to pick up the pace because I have a few more to get through. So competence. So leaders have to be able to navigate, because Lee is path and Dur is finder, and so a leader is actually a pathfinder. And And whenever I'm sure I know the way to go and people should follow, and I think people should follow me, I remember something that happened when I was skiing to the South Pole. Too many props. Now, you don't go anywhere in Antarctica without your glacier glasses on. And there were 7 different days in Antarctica when we traveled in whiteout conditions. Whiteouts happen when the clouds come down on the surface of the snow. Up is white, down is white, left is white, right is white, and you literally cannot see the ground in front of you. How you navigate in a whiteout is you send the youngest, I was young then, member of the expedition team off into the mist. And how you navigate, if you're out off in the mist, is you have your compass. It's a standard mountaineering compass. It has a sighting mirror. And the mirror, it's also called an idiot's compass because the mirror shows you who is lost. Right? And I was really excited because one day I had this perfect landmark off in the mist. It was a piece of sastrugia, a bump in the ice. And I skied right for it, skied right for it, skied right for it. Colonel Ron Milnarek was my second that day. It was his job to correct any deviations in my course. He said, "Tori, you're veering right." I'm like, no, I'm not. I was young and perfect. I checked again. Nope, my landmark was due south, skied right for it, skied right for it, skied right for it. "Tori, you're veering right." No, I'm not. I was a graduate of the National Outdoor Leadership School. I knew how to use a compass, by Harry God. I checked again. No, my landmark was due south, skied right for it, skied right for it, skied right for it. "Tori, you're veering right." That's it. He's a dead man. I'm going to have to kill him. I turned to give Colonel Ron Milnarek of the U.S. Air Force my very best Murden death stare. When I did that, I realized my landmark off in the mist was a spot of frost on my glasses. So, when you're navigating in the front country, keep your glasses clean. And also, when you're navigating anywhere, even your telephone needs 3 points of reference. Now, I worry about our navigation these days because we tend to only listen to people who are in one direction, right? And navigation is much better if I get someone way over on the left, way over on the right, somebody behind me, somebody ahead of me, and if I'm willing to explore those other points of view, I will have a better sense of who I am and a better ability to find the path. So, too much talking. I want to get to questions. Questions are cool. So, next up is communication. It involves listening and talking. I'm going to skip the story connected with that. Next up is judgment and decision making. Oh wait, got to go to communication and listening. No, never mind. Judgment and decision making. You know, there's good judgment and there's bad judgment. You cannot live long enough to make all the mistakes yourselves, so learn from the bad judgment of other people. When I talk to students, I talk about gradations of stupid. Learn from the stupidity of others. Stupid level 1 gets you hurt. Stupid level 2 gets other people hurt. Stupid level 3 involves police and lawyers. And for students, avoid all gradations, actually for everybody, avoid all gradations of stupid that begin with the phrase, "Hey, hold my beer, watch this." Number 5 is tolerance for uncertainty and tolerance for adversity. Good God, don't follow anyone who has to have all the answers before they're able to move. Analysis, paralysis by analysis, whatever that might be. But I tend to be someone who, if you do the kind of things I do, you become a favorite guinea pig for psychological testing. Like, somewhere here at U of L, my name is on a list in the psychology department. And it happened so often that I actually called the professor and I said, "My name is Tori Murden McClure." He said, "I'm sorry." It's like, what'd I do to you? And he goes, "I always send my most arrogant students to you." And I'm like, "Why?" He said, "Nobody can mess up a data set like you can." And it doesn't matter what set of psychological testing you give me, I'm the person who runs toward uncertainty. Like, if they're shotgun, if there's danger and you can hear the danger, I'm going toward it. I stay certified as an EMT because I think I should know how to take care of the trouble when I get there. But that wasn't where I was going either. Gradations of stupid. So I have an audience participation question. If you're really, really smart and your social skills are a little sketchy, raise your hand. Couple honest people. If you know someone in this room who's really, really smart, but whose social skills are a little sketchy, raise your hand. Yeah. Really, really smart, social skills a little sketchy, like psychological tests. Over here in sort of nuts and bolts, logical thinking, I'm a genius. Over here in sort of creative, visionary, connecting dots that nobody else would connect, I'm a genius. In the middle, where most people live their lives, dumb as a rock, right? If I only had one side or the other, I would test on the Asperger spectrum, but because I have both sides, I can actually put the pieces together if I feel like it. If you bore me, not a chance. So, tolerance for adversity and uncertainty. The last one is self-awareness. Aristotle said we should live within the golden mean, nothing in excess, all that stuff. So most of my life I'm trying to live in the Aristotle plan. Every once in a while I go to a little Nietzsche, a little Uber, and I'm not talking about ride. I'm talking Uber as in supreme, as in ultimate, as in I got to go ski to the South Pole. I don't know that that's healthy. Aristotle's probably a little better. But for creatives, every once in a while, give yourself permission to go a little supreme, go a little ultimate, go a little all the way out. So the last is vision and action. But I want to end with the top 10 things I think I know, and then there will still be time for questions. Yes. So I like to end commencement addresses with the top 10 things I think I know. And since you're creatives and some of you look like you probably just graduated, I'm going to give you these things. Socrates said, all I know is that I know nothing. I don't know anything for sure, so here are the top 10 things I think I know. Number 1, if the carrot is big enough, you can use it as a stick. Number 2, silence is golden, and if silence should fail you, duct tape is silver. Number 3, roadblocks only block the road. They do not block the grass, the path, the water, or the way less traveled. Roadblocks only block the road. Number 4, do not treat others in a way that makes them feel small. If making others feel small becomes a habit, it will make you smaller. Number 5, it is never too late to have a happy childhood. I've had several, and I have many more planned. Or the corollary, I may grow old, but I plan never to be old enough to know better. Number 6 is a new one. Do not burn bridges. Just loosen the bolts a little each day. So that's a little snarky, maybe. Number 7, when in doubt, mumble. Number 8, if there's something that you're doing that you have to keep secret, then perhaps you should not be doing it. Number 9, essential for university presidents, do not take yourself too seriously. No one else does. Number 10, do not believe everything you think. Or as Socrates said, all I know is that I know nothing. I hope that when you leave here today that you will go out, that you will continue to teach, heal, feed, and build. You will inform, advocate, comfort, and guide. You will criticize, organize, contribute, and in 1,000 other ways serve people and causes. And for that, I thank you.